Today we're going to take a break from our look at the book of Revelation to talk about moms, right? Mother's Day. I was reading an article last week about a new survey that was done. Survey was released on May the 4th. It was made by Barna Group. Can you hear me okay? John, can you hear me okay? All right. Back there, you can hear me okay? Okay, good. Survey was done by Barna Group. Barna is a Christian research organization that studies culture and faith. It's a very big organization. And they partnered with this other international group called MOPS, M-O-P-S. It's a Christian organization that connects and supports moms. And they did a study. They did research on moms. Believers, unbelievers, Christians, or non-religious people, a comprehensive study. They have a lot of findings, but I'm going to focus on a couple of them that took my attention. When they presented the data, they showed how influential mothers were in the life of their children when it pertained to faith. They are the original and the most effective disciple makers. 62% of practicing Christian teens said that their mothers would be the one that they would go to for questions about faith. 40% said fathers, 20% siblings, 6 grandparents, 3 a close friend. When asked who they would be most likely to talk about the Bible, 61% of practicing Christian teens chose moms, 42 fathers, 28 siblings, 6 grandparents, and 12% friends. When asked to practicing Christian teens about the different actions that people in their households would take to share their faith, 80% of these teens said that their moms were the ones that encouraged them to go to church. 75% said their moms were the ones who talked with them about God's forgiveness. And 53% said their moms were the ones who taught them about the Bible. Now, why did I go through all these numbers? Just to prove how influential a godly mother is in the faith of a child. Now, this is specifically looking at Christian moms and Christian children professing to be Christian. Now that we established that, I'm sure it's not a surprise to any of you. But following fact that came out was a surprise to me, and that's the reason why I want to talk about it today, which is this. Shockingly low numbers of mothers report feeling that they are regularly, meaningfully contributing to the world. In other words, these moms don't think they're making a difference. 19% of all moms agreed that they did, compared to 21% of self-identified Christian moms and 14% of non-Christian moms. What does this mean? On the average, even if you're a Christian mom, only 21% of moms feel like they're making a difference in their children's faith and their life. And therefore, they're making a difference in the world. They don't think they matter. It's a big gap. It's a discrepancy between what the truth is and what they're perceiving to be truth. It's good that they're not being prideful about it. Well, I'm doing this, I'm doing that. That's great. But at the same time, it's a false identification, as though they don't matter. They have the greatest influence in the world. Just because their profession doesn't come with a diploma on the wall, or a quantifiable paycheck to which you compare your level of success. And that's why so many young ladies don't aspire to be moms anymore. They want to go into the world and make a lot of money because they want to find their worth in money rather than making a difference through being a mom. There are so many issues we could address within that context just by itself, but let's put that aside for today. So I started thinking, what can I possibly say to moms who are Christians and grandmas who are Christians for bringing up kids or helping raise kids? How can I encourage them that simply by teaching faith to the kids, they are changing the world? Well, for the purposes of today, at the very least, all you moms, all you grandmas, I'm telling you, simply by teaching the pure faith, not fables and other things, but pure faith, you're changing the world. Not only that, you're changing the eternal destination of that child, and maybe their children, and their children, and their children. A lot of times we have to overlook our shortcomings instead of getting lost in them. Focus on our faith. Do the best we can with what we have. I'm going to give you a couple of examples from the scriptures. One of them is Timothy. You guys all know Timothy from letters of Paul. He was a young pastor. He was a prodigy for Paul, and he also pastored the church in Ephesus. And he made a difference for the kingdom, and to this day we know about him. And because letters that were written to him, we know the qualifications of an elder, a deacon, a pastor, and church hierarchy, and so many other things. And to this day, when you say Timothy, we know exactly who we're talking about. Now, this Timothy came to faith, we're told, because of his mother and because of his grandmother. And I'm going to look at another example. A tough sacrifice a mom made because she made a promise to the Lord. And that's the example of Samuel. Samuel was a great man of God. He was the one that was influential in leading Israel at the time. He was the one who blessed and ordained the first and the second king of Israel. God used them mightily to change eternity and change history. But that man came to being because of a faithful woman, her prayer, and her sacrifice. If you want to follow along, I'm going to read the story from the first book of Samuel, starting from chapter 1, verse 1. Now there was a certain man in the country of Ephraim. His name was Elkanah. He had two wives. The name of the one was Hannah, the other one was Peninnah. And Peninnah had children, but Hannah had no children. Now this man would go up from his city yearly to worship and sacrifice to the Lord of hosts in Shiloh. And two sons of Eli, Hophni and Phinehas, was priests of the Lord. When the day came, Elkanah sacrificed, and he would give portions to Peninnah's wife and all her sons and her daughters. But Hannah he would give double portion, for he loved Hannah, but the Lord had closed her womb. You see what's happening here? There's a man with two wives. One has children, the other one has none. The man loves the one without children a lot more than the other ones. Talk about beginnings of a dysfunctional family, right? But that was the case. Her rival, however, would provoke her bitterly to irritate her because the Lord had closed her womb. It happened year after year. As often as she went up to the house of the Lord, she would provoke her, and she wept and would not eat. So this lady, Hannah, is depressed because she's not a success. She's not making a difference. In that day, they believed that if you didn't have children, that means there was sin in you and God was punishing you. It's absurd. It's not the case, but that was the belief. It's not even a biblical fact or teaching at all. It's just cultural nonsense. But that was her image in front of the people. So she's feeling like she's not making a difference. Kind of like a lot of moms we read about today in this study. Then Elkanah, her husband, said to her, Hannah, why do you weep and why do you not eat, and why does your heart grow sad? Am I not better for you than 10 sons? He's trying to encourage her and say, look, am I not good to you? Why do you need sons? Here's all the money. But as husbands often do, they were missing the point. He was missing the point. Then Hannah rose after eating and drinking in Shiloh. Now Eli the priest was sitting at the seat by the doorpost of the temple of the Lord. So Hannah is going into the temple, and the priest was sitting by the door. He's nearby, so he's able to see what's happening. She, greatly distressed, prayed to the Lord and wept bitterly. Have you ever prayed like that? A part of me wishes that we never have to, because there is so much pain, and from that pain comes that drive to go to the Lord. It's just, you're so down and you're so heavily pressed and so emotional and sad that you have nowhere to go but up. A part of me doesn't want anyone else to be there. But a part of me appreciates those times, but those are the real, true crying out to the Lord times. She greatly distressed, prayed and to the Lord and wept bitterly. She made a vow and said, O Lord of hosts, if you will if you will indeed look unto my affliction and your maidservant and remember me, and not forget your maidservant, you will give your maidservant a son. Then I will give him to the Lord all the days of his life, and a razor shall not come to his head. Do you know what she's praying? She's praying that, Lord, I can't have a child. But if you give me a son, I will give him to you. What does that mean? Well, we'll find out. As she's praying this, it came about as she continued praying before the Lord, and Eli was watching her. And as for Hannah, she was speaking in her heart. Only her lips were moving, but her voice was not heard. So Eli thought that she was drunk. Then Eli said to her, how long will you make yourself drunk? Put away the wine from you. She's so distressed. She's praying. She's not praying out loud, but she's praying silently to the Lord. But she is just so full of pain, and she's just pouring her heart out to the Lord. But Hannah replied, no, my Lord. I am a woman oppressed in spirit. I have drunk neither wine nor strong drink, but I have poured out my soul before the Lord. Do not consider your maidservant as a worthless woman, for I have spoken until now out of my grief, concern and provocation. Then Eli answered and said, go in peace. May the God of Israel grant you your petition, that what you have asked for him. She said, let your maidservant find favor in your sight. So the woman went her way and ate, and her face was no longer sad. So here's this encounter with Eli, the priest. She's praying fervently from her anguish and pain. And Eli says, amen to her prayer. May the Lord answer your prayer. Then they arose early in the morning and worshiped before the Lord, and returned again to their home in Ramah. And Elkanah had relations with his wife Hannah, and the Lord remembered her. It came about in due time. A lot of things happen in due time, not when we want it. Remember that too. In due time, after Hannah had conceived, that she gave birth to a son, and she named him Samuel, saying, because I asked him of the Lord. Now, God answered her prayer. What is she going to do now? She had promised. She said, Lord, if you give me a son, I will give him back to you. Then the man, Elkanah, went up with all his household to offer the Lord the yearly sacrifice and pay his vow. But Hannah did not go up, for she said to her husband, I will not go up until the child is weaned. Then I will bring him, that he might appear before the Lord and stay there forever. Are you following what's about to happen? Elkanah, her husband, said to her, do what seems best to you. Remain until you have weaned him. Only may the Lord confirm his word. So that the woman remained and nursed her son until she weaned him. Now when she had weaned him, she took him up with her with a 3-year-old bull and 1 ephah of flour and a jug of wine, and brought him to the house of the Lord in Shiloh, although the child was young. Then they slaughtered the bull and brought the boy to Eli, the priest. She said, here's the hard part, my Lord, as your soul lives, my Lord, I am the woman who stood here beside you praying to the Lord. For this boy I prayed, and the Lord has given me my petition, which I asked of him. So I have also dedicated him to the Lord. As long as he lives, he is dedicated to the Lord. And he worshiped the Lord there. Basically, she left her son in the temple to serve the Lord. To grow. I don't know how old he was. He had to be young, where he didn't need mom's milk. Man, he probably 5, 7 years old, around there. How many moms here can make that sacrifice? Not easy. Oh my goodness. But she promised to the Lord. And she kept the promise. She made her sacrifice. So why did I go into the story of Samuel? See, with you keeping your faith, making sacrifices for your children to teach them the faith, making sacrifices from your life to show them the truth, making sacrifices from your comfort, teaching them the truth, exemplifying the truth. You're doing a great job. You're making a difference, not only in this world, but you're making a difference for them in eternity. And God sees it, and God will honor it. So I'm here to encourage you, moms, to keep doing what you're doing. I'm here to warn you, dads, do not despise your wives who might have stronger faith than you, even though they might seem simpler in their ways. They might be before you and have more crowns, and you might be embarrassed when you stand before the Lord. Encourage them. Speaking to the grandmas who are here, encourage you to keep teaching the faith, the truth of Jesus, the way of salvation, the way to live. What does a godly woman, what does a godly man look like? How do they dress? How do they talk? How do they behave? Where do they go? Where do they not go? All these need to come from moms and grandmas. And they do for the most part. You know, I read a story, speaking of sacrifice, of this lady. Her name is not given to us. There was a teenager who didn't want to be seen in public with her mom. She was embarrassed of her. Why? Because this woman had grossly disfigured arms. One day, they're at a grocery store. So, you guys remember those grocery stores? Before Instacart and Amazon. We used to go to these places called grocery stores and buy stuff and pay for it at the cashier. We had actual paper money. So, this must be one of those times. They went to the grocery store, and as they're checking out, the cashier, as his mom is putting her stuff, her arm was exposed, I guess. And her arm must have been so disfigured that when the cashier saw the arm, she was a little disturbed. So it must have been really ugly. You know? She looked horrified. And then her daughter started crying in the car. How embarrassing is this? I don't want to go anywhere with you anymore, and this and that. So say the least. Mom was sad. We got home. About an hour passed. Mom was downstairs. She slowly went up to her room and started talking to her. She said, "Did I ever tell you why my arms are so disfigured?" She knew she didn't. Started telling her. "One day when you were a baby, you were about 6 months old, I woke up to smoke in a burning house. Flames were everywhere," she said. "I could have just walked out the front door and I would have been fine. But," she said, "I decided to rather die with you than leave you to die alone." So she went upstairs to grab her baby. She went through the flames, and she came out of the flames with her baby in her arms. When I got outside on the lawn, the pain was agonizing because her arms were burning. But when I looked at you, all I could do was to rejoice that the flames hadn't touched you. Stunned, the girl looked at her mom through new eyes, weeping in shame, weeping in gratitude. She kissed her wounded arms. Mom sacrificed a lot. This is just an illustration. Not every mom carries us out of a burning building, but every mom sacrifices so much for us. We might take them for granted. We might look at them as simpletons. We might look at them as, what do they know? I've seen examples of faithful moms who are believers, who are walking with the Lord. They have a childlike pure faith. I've seen their husbands and their kids minimizing them. If that's you, stop it. If you see others doing it, make sure they stop it. They deserve so much better. And I don't want to leave on that sad note. I read this one, hopefully uplifting and a humorous one. Again, it illustrates the point of moms being so giving. A teacher was teaching about arithmetic and division and fraction. Asked the boy this question. Suppose your mother baked a pie and there were 7 of you, your parents and 5 children. What part of the pie would you get? 1/6, replied the boy. Teacher said, I'm afraid you don't know your fractions, young man. Remember, there are 7 of you. And the boy said, yes, teacher, but you don't know my mom. Mother would say she didn't want any pie. I am sure you all have illustrations in your lives of your moms, your grandmas. Honor their sacrifices. It's not easy to be a mom. It's not easy to be a grandma, especially a believing one. And I want to encourage you, moms and grandmas, that I hope this research would be proven false one day. I hope you will know that by you teaching, modeling, exemplifying your faith, you are making a difference that you cannot even imagine. Know that. And trust it and continue in your pure and holy faith. God bless.